So hopefully that short video has given you a bit of a taster of our new competition for this year, and let's get straight into it. 8 rounds of the British Touring Car Championship following the schedule for this year. We're going to have teams of 4 to 8 people who are going to compete across all 8 rounds of the championship. Points awarded for race results and qualifying times. The reason we've done that is that we're going to set the AI to a certain amount of difficulty, and if each team came in and managed to win the race, you'd all be allocated maximum points for a race win, and we'd all be sat there at the end of round 1 on the same amount of points. So they're also going to take your fastest qualifying time for each team, real team who comes in, and let's say that Team A does a 1 minute 10, Team B does a 1 minute 12, and so on. Then the faster team will get extra, maybe 10 points or 9, and we'll decide those points depending on how many teams enter. So if we've got a total of 10 teams, the first team will get 10 points down to 1. If we've got a total of 16 teams, the first team will get 16 down to 1. It's just going to help to separate the difference between the performance of the teams, if it happens to be that everyone does really well in the race or doesn't do very well in the race. Quite simply, the most points at the end of the season wins the championship. So the cars, we're going to allow you to choose from a range of the touring cars that are an option to drive in our simulators. So you've got offerings from BMW, Hyundai, Ford, Infiniti, Toyota, Vauxhall, and maybe a couple of others depending on updates to the simulator. The difference between them is obviously some of them are front wheel drive, some of them are rear wheel drive, and the way those cars handle and the way you extract the best lap time from them is going to vary depending on which driver you bring in and just what you prefer to drive. Also, there's a massive difference in, like, the Infiniti, for instance, is a really long car, it's really stable, but it's not as agile as maybe like the Toyota, which is really short on its wheelbase. So these things are taken into account. But we will allow you to switch cars between rounds. So if you decide you want a really stable car for Thruxton, for example, but you want a really agile car for Brands Hatch, you can pick. So it gets to the round, you'll come in and you'll decide then which car you want to use for that round. We won't allow you to change cars between sessions, so you have to use the whole car for the round, for qualifying and the race, but you can change cars between the different rounds. We thought about this a lot in terms of setup for the cars, but we've decided to use fixed setups because if you've got a lot of time to put a setup into the car, there's a lot of time to be had with a good setup. So we're going to use fixed setups, but you will have to choose your tyre compounds, and that is from hard, medium and soft, but also wet, because we are going to run some wet sessions too. And then you also have to think about your fuel loads. So you're going to want to have a fuel load that's obviously going to get you to the end of the race, but not carry too much excess fuel just for the sake of it. So there's a few things to take into account, but we haven't made it too complicated, so it only favours people who've got loads of time to build a really good setup at home. So that's it for the cars. So the tracks, we're going to use obviously the British Touring Car tracks following the schedule for this year, kicking off in early April or mid-April at Donington Park, and working our way through Brands Hatch, Snetterton, Thruxton as we go through the calendar. In terms of weather conditions, we thought easy option, dry every session, dry every practice, dry every race, and it's not going to be boring, but we're going to mix it up with a little bit of wet weather as well. Now that may be wet just for qualifying and dry for the race, or vice versa, or it might be an entire wet weekend. We're not too sure yet. We might even just put it at random and see what gets allocated for the first team in each round, and then obviously replicate that for each other team. Important to say that If Team A comes in on a Monday and it's mixed weather, wet for qualifying, dry for the race, it will be exactly the same for every team for that entire round. So we're not going to mix it up for different teams to make it more difficult for one or another. You will all drive the same conditions for every round. In terms of sessions, we're going to have a 30-minute qualifying session. It's going to give you a chance to maybe go on track 3 times. So, out, test something, see how much your tyres are wearing if you want to go for a soft, see if you're going to be able to make that soft last. And then we're going to have obviously 10-15 minutes between qualifying and the race to talk about if you want to maybe pick a different setup for your race and where you can improve and things like that. Have a drink and then get ready for your race. 20-minute race sounds short, but when it's 20 minutes of constant concentration and constant busy action in a British touring car race, it is quite a feat to get round in 20 minutes unscathed and work your way to the front and grab those wins. So I think that's going to work out really well. Each session should last somewhere between an hour and a half and maybe a little bit more. So yeah, that's it for the tracks. Okay, so the rules, getting down to the boring stuff a little bit now, but we have to have these rules in place to keep it fair for everybody. So we thought about the damage being on or off, and there's an argument to be said to have damage on because it makes you drive more carefully and drive more like it's the real thing. But it's going to be a busy grid. There's going to be contact. Inevitably, in every race, there's going to be contact. And whether that's your fault or not, it's not fair if an incident happens between 2 AI cars, you get clipped, you take damage, and potentially can't even finish the race because of something that was completely out of your control. Now, we understand that is part of racing in real life, but this is a simulation and we can control that, and we are going to have it off just so nobody's race is ruined in 5 minutes and we're sending you home. So that's the reason for that. Now, in terms of track limits, they can be quite strict on the simulators we use, and that's just a case of running like a foot wide over the track limits, and it's going to make you do slowdowns, and if they're ignored there'll be penalties, and if they're ignored there'll be drive-throughs, and if there's contact on certain corners you'll be forced to give positions back, and it's just going to make it a less enjoyable experience, I think. And we believe that the drivers who are coming in aren't going to be throwing up the inside at every corner and smashing into everybody because they know the rules are off and they know damage is off, and for want of a better word, taking the mickey really. So people are going to respect the rules, and we are going to watch every minute, every second of every session, and if penalties need to be issued for people who intentionally cut part of the circuit or don't take care for overtakes, then we will issue penalties for that. And we're going to keep it as fair as we can. We also thought about pre-booked practice sessions, and we're not going to have that. So once your team's allocated, we've got a list of drivers, and if you just can't come in and book a pre-book session because it's just unfair. It turns into checkbook racing. Okay, so the teams. We're going to have hopefully around 15 or 16 teams, and in each team you're going to pick between 4 and 8 drivers. This is another thing we thought about. We could have had 2 drivers, but you could have just ended up with 2 exceptionally really, really fast drivers and not giving anyone else a chance. So also what we've done is we want drivers to compete in a maximum of 2 rounds each. So if you picked a team of 4 drivers, you couldn't have 3 drivers doing 1 round each, and then the 4th driver, who's your superstar, doing the other 5. We want to split it quite equally amongst you. And if you're really quick, that's great, but it just means that a vast majority of the team performance isn't dictated by one single driver. It's a team effort. This is what it's about. It's about having a team and all taking sort of as equal a part in the competition as possible. Each round must be driven by a single driver, and all that really means is you can't just bring in your superstar qualifier to stick it on pole and then let your mate do the race. You allocate a driver for round 1, that driver comes in, does the qualifying session and the race, and then round 2 the same again. So that's all pretty simple, and that's it for the teams. Okay, the point system. It's pretty simple. We haven't made it too complicated, so people aren't left wondering how these points are allocated. So every round you're going to be set with the AI at 100%, and on certain tracks that will make them really hard to beat, and on other tracks not too difficult. We can't adjust the AI depending on the ability of each individual driver, so we've got to make it fair and have it the same for everybody. And then points are allocated just as they are in the BTCC: 20 points for first, 17 for second, 15 for third, all the way down to 1 for 15th. And we're going to do that for you guys as well. As I mentioned earlier on, if the AI was particularly easy to beat one week and you all won the race, we don't want you all sat there with 20 points, because it doesn't look very good if everyone's on the same points and there's no leader. So when you do your qualifying session, we'll note down your qualifying time, and whether that's a pole time or not, your fastest lap in your qualifying session, and then we'll compare that to everybody else, all the other teams' qualifying times for that round, and you will be ranked first to 16th if there's 16 teams, and points allocated 16 for the fastest team and 1 for the slowest. If there's only 10 teams entered, then first will get 10 and last will get 1. So hopefully that's all pretty straightforward, and quite simply, the team with the highest map points at the end of it wins the championship. Okay, so the prizes. First prize for the overall winning team: 4 tickets to the final of the British Touring Cars at Brands Hatch at the start of October. British Touring Cars, an amazing spectacle, an amazing weekend. Not just the BTCC itself, but support classes, everything that goes on around it. Just an amazing weekend of entertainment. And down at Brands Hatch as well, just an iconic circuit, an amazing venue to host the final of the championship. We'll also do some monthly prizes for winners of each round. What they'll be at the moment, we're not too sure, but there'll definitely be some merchandise in there and a few goodies here and there. But yeah, the main prize for the winning team, that trip down to Brands Hatch, so something to really aim for, and good luck to you. Okay, so the cost to enter your team, we're going to have it at $9.95 per team, and when you break it down, obviously with a 4-man team, it's around £250 each, or an 8-man team, £125 each. When we've worked out how long a session takes, and we've ran some like simulated sessions with some of our friends to just see how it all flows, you're looking at each team's going to get between 12 to 15 hours of sim time across the 8 rounds. So when you break it down, that's 50% cheaper than it would be traditionally booking hourly sessions with us. So it's a big discount really on what you pay if you're just booking hours. And obviously with the prizes that we're going to be giving out, and just having the competition format all organised for you, and the fun of competing against all these other teams and other companies on the island, we believe it's going to be great value racing. Whether you're a sort of a medium-sized company and you want to book a team but not allocate drivers yet, and then at the end of each month, if someone's done something exceptional for you that month and you want to award them as your driver for that month, that's a good idea. Or if you're a smaller company and you all just want to get involved, it's not going to cost you all a lot each. If you're just a group of friends, you can just get together and name your team whatever you like, and it's a great way for you to consistently throughout the year come together and come in and compete together as a team, and just try and beat all the other guys, which is what it's really about. It's about having fun, but it's about you guys coming in and seeing where you stack up against other people and other companies and people So yeah, give us a shout, give us a contact, and if you want any more information or any questions, by all means ask. And we look forward to hearing from you and getting you guys signed up, ready for the first round at Donington in April. Thank you.